Gavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Approval of minutes of May 22nd. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Are there any comments, corrections? If not, motion?
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of the May 22nd, 2018 meeting.
Oracle second.
Roll call.
Dunstan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorik, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
Council approved the following: an ordinance approving a conditional use permit for a transshipment depot facility and truck engine repair on the property at 9880 South Ridgeview Drive, and approve the issuance of a building permit for the construction of a residential building without the street improvement completed for the property at 928 East Forest Hill Avenue. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We're going to open up with item number 5A as a public hearing. And this one concerns a property at 9350 South 22nd that would allow an 80-foot monopole. Pete, would you like to read that in, please?
I'll read the public hearing notice in for the record. City of Oak Creek, public notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held on Tuesday, June 12, 2018 at 6 p.m. at Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. The appellant, Kenworth, represented by Steve Cruitt, tax key number 877-9018-000. Property is located at 9350 South 22nd Street. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 17.0706 sub E, which states that the pole sign shall not exceed 25 feet in height and not exceed 100 square feet in area. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install an 80-foot tall and 167.11 square foot pole sign located at 9350 South 22nd Street. Zoning of the property is B4 PUD, Highway Business District, Planned Unit Development. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 23rd day of May, 2018. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Signed, Mayor Daniel J. Bukowitz, Chairman. This is a public hearing, and anyone who wishes to comment can step up to the podium, state your name and address, and ask your question to the Plan Commission. The public hearing is now open.
Great. Thank you very much, Pete. Just a little housekeeping here. We do have some speakers, and not all the item numbers are on there, but based on the addresses, I'm thinking that they're for different items. So we have Ron, Vicky, and Elizabeth. I'm thinking that's for the later items on HSI. And then Tom Mills, if you're still here, regarding Harley Davidson, that is actually, they came in at the wrong time. So if you're here, you may want to consider watching or going home. So, but your item's not here. So, as Pete said, this is a public hearing. We're going to make 3 calls concerning the Kenworth pole. This will be the first call. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address. Second call. And third and final call. Okay, we will close the public hearing, and we will move on to item 6A, which is consideration of that monopole at 9350 South 22nd Avenue. Commentary, Pete?
Yes. The applicant is proposing, I should back up a little bit and explain that the applicant does have an existing 40-foot tall pole sign on the site and is proposing to double the height of the sign to 80 feet and then increase the sign up to 167 square feet in area. Included in your report was a narrative from the applicant explaining the rationale as to why this sign is a suitable fit for the location. And also included in the report, I talked about addressing some of the examples he used. And one of them was the IKEA sign, which is one of our tallest signs in the city. In that particular case, that sign, the zoning code for the B6 zoning district, which is destination retail, allows specifically for that tall and that size sign. So it is very specific to a zoning district. And this is not a B6 zoning. This is a B4 zoning district. They also mentioned the Steinhoffel sign. If you recall, we had some sign appeals for that. They had a 95-foot existing sign, and then when they came back, because it's due to the sign's poor condition, they did come back with a slightly smaller sign when it came to the height, or I should say shorter, not smaller, and then they asked for a variance for a slightly larger sign than before. And then the third example they had in the report was the La Quinta, Applebee's, and South Shore Cinema signage. That size and height of a sign was approved back in 1982 as part of the PUD to allow for that type of sign. Today, we would not allow for that. So I just wanted to bring in mind that, the goal of our zoning code has over the decades shrunk, and now we're down to 25. There was a time when 40 was allowed, and that's when Kenworth came in and had their 40-foot tall sign. So just keep in mind that when we look at variances and height of signs, we're trying to keep that view shed along our interstate as clutter-free as possible. With that said, it's up to the Plan Commission to determine if this is a suitable circumstance in which to grant a variance.
Thank you, Pete. Before I open it to the commission, is the applicant in? Would they like to state something? If you would, please come to the microphone and name and address, please.
Like the business address.
Sure, that'll work.
Steve Cruitt, Wisconsin, Kenworth, 9350 South 22nd Street.
Great. Go ahead and kind of explain to us the need for the 80-foot monopole.
Yes, that's correct, 80 feet. It relates to a couple things. One of the things that I think be a great benefit is for the truckers that exit the highway and the ease of them finding the location. When they pull off, it's easily visible if it's up in the air a little higher. And one of the needs that drives it is, well, two of them really. One, we're kind of set back from the highway, and that tied in with the growth that is there along the highway. With the construction they're doing now, they've cut that back. So currently it's okay, but as they finish their work and everything grows back, the sign that we have now is pretty much unvisible at that point in time. And then a couple of things that I think that kind of give us an exception. If you look at where the sign is at, it's not really visible for much of the city, as people traveling off the highway, as it is really a sign designed for viewing from the highway. If we were on 27th Street or something on that order, I could see where you wouldn't maybe want a sign like that, somewhat obnoxious. Where we're at, it's on the back side of our property, mainly facing the highway, just for that kind of visibility. And then the other thing is, as it goes up, it actually, I believe, have less light pollution to the hotel that's there, because the light will be up higher and not necessarily shining in the windows for the people that are staying there. So I think that'll be a benefit for them. And that's really all I have. I know, Marty, you might have a couple things you want to add too.
The only other thing I would add is
Name and address, please.
sorry, Martin Westberg, 16271 Lincoln Avenue, New Berlin, Badger Lighting and Signs. The other issue, or I guess
You gotta-
problem that is foreseen.
You got to talk in a
On
microphone,
mic.
sir.
Sorry. The other issue is that there's that berm on the south side of the road there that wasn't there initially, that is now there obstructing a lot of the view.
Okay. Questions from the commission?
I
Fred?
have a question about the size. Is that size that you have, what is the dimension of that sign that you have proposed?
That the size,
The proposed sign is 5'4" tall by 31'4" wide. Sorry. The proposed sign is 5'4" tall by 31'4" wide.
And I'm just looking at the example, and it appears as a black background. Is that the sign that you're talking about? Or just the Kenworth?
Which part of the drawing are you referring to?
If you look on the screen,
Okay.
there's a Kenworth sign, and below it, of course, there's a black background. Is that what
That
you're,
would, I believe you're referring to the night view?
okay. Yeah, that's,
yeah, there's
the
no,
night view is, what I'm saying is, the size, it seems like should be the Kenworth sign and not anything else with it.
right, yeah, would be, don't know if you have the same monitor view that we have, but it
Probably
would
the
be
easiest way to explain it is if you look to the far left, Fred,
yes.
they got a picture of the monopole, they have the dimensions of it. And that probably answers it easy.
We don't, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have
where it
that.
says 3M digitally printed flex face, that would be basically the view. There is no frame around it other than the metal that would hold the face in.
All right, thank you.
Chelsea?
Can you give a little more information on why 80 feet versus 40 feet? Is the berm 70 feet high?
What we're trying to avoid is trucks not seeing the sign until the absolute last moment.
Last moment of what?
Being able to safely exit the
Oh,
interstate.
to exit. Oh, okay, okay.
Right. Yeah, especially on the exit itself, and then as they're heading northbound on the interstate, it's less. You can't really see it at 40 feet, especially once the growth comes back. Like I said, now it's if you went there now, it looks better, but they cut out some trees, but they're going to be coming back.
So why 40 to 80 feet? That's a huge difference.
Well, basically
why
at
not
40
60?
with the trees that are there, there's no visibility. So in order to get above that, the tree line, it would have to be at 80.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, anything?
Well, this is my district, and I guess the one question I have is how has your business model changed, from when you opened and the 40-foot sign was working and now the big leap. Now, the trees were there before. I'm just curious if it's, and I understand the traffic on the interstate as well. But I also think I'm hearing that you're saying that this is a sign to help people on the interstate see this.
Right.
So it seems like it's a sign that it's trying to almost do too much because by location, you're close to the freeway, but just not close enough. So it's almost like, boy, you just don't have the best view at all. And so I understand where you're trying to go with this.
Right.
I do agree with the other commissioners. It just seems like this is a big jump in size. So I guess, is there something that we can maybe come to an agreement that would work for everybody? Those are my thoughts right now. But
Right.
But if you can answer, how has your business model changed? Has it changed much at all, or?
To a certain extent, it has. I mean, the biggest thing would be in relation to the trucks that we work on. So if you look at the traffic on the road that's over-the-road drivers going up on I-94 versus a vocational customer, that type of traffic has increased over time, and a lot less experienced drivers and people like, companies like Millis, they're one of our big customers. They have a lot of new drivers, younger drivers. So it really helps to have that visibility. And we've had 3 shifts. We're back to 2. We'll be back at 3. A lot of nighttime visibility that way too. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Dawn?
I'm not familiar with your business. So explain to me, would I be driving a truck and need to find you, or would I have scheduled it and know where I'm going with GPS or on my phone? I'm hard pressed to think that if I'm going to your location that I need a big sign to tell me where I'm going.
Right, I understand that. So a lot of drivers, it'd be their first time, is, I was saying, the over-the-road drivers, so they would be trying to locate us, and they may have GPS to help them get there, but to really focus on that when you're exiting the highway may be somewhat difficult. Just for, new arrivals that want to know exactly where they go, I think it would definitely help them.
Okay, so not really used for advertising like the other signs in the city, like an IKEA is,
I'm sure that would be a side benefit of the situation, but IKEA, obviously, that's a recognized name for someone for what they're shopping for, and generally, a lot of people in the area, I'm sure, going there. We really do have a lot of customers that are arriving from out of town, as you can imagine, as a over-the-road driver. So,
Craig, Brian? Nothing? No opinions either way. Okay, Okay, I guess I have a few questions, and I'll probably need some help from staff if you guys have the answers. How tall is the pilot sign, and how tall is the Value? What's the hotel behind it? Value Inn behind it. I mean, just ballpark. I know that.
Just going off memory, and it gets worse every year, but I think when Arby's came in, I think they were at 60 feet.
Which is Quick Trip now, correct?
And there's still Arby's there.
No kidding? Oh, okay. Shows how much I frequent. Okay.
But I think, I mean, it kind of brings into discussion the issue of, I mean, you are a business in that area, and we understand your operational model, and you know, the 40-foot sign that you already have is actually 15 foot higher than the maximum allowable in the zoning district right now. Plus, you've got memory serves as part of the architecture. You had the plan commission requested the plan commission approve an actual a truck on your roof to further provide that attention to your business. So, I mean, my difficulty here is understanding how you are different than any other business in that area that now says, sure, I'd love to have more visibility off the freeway, you know, but then so Kenworth play this out, gets an 80-foot sign, then well, now Arby's wants the 90-foot sign, and now Value Inn wants a 110-foot sign, and I think the commission, in their authority for sign variances, you know, has to be certainly very careful. And there's a set of criteria that you have to look at. And, you know, I'm not sure, quite honestly, that, at least from my perspective, I see that criteria is being met here.
Okay. But Pilot's a sizable sign, correct?
It's pretty, and that Pilot, remember, that was the old 76 truck stop. So that's
Yeah,
that's another old
kind of
sign.
grandfathered, much
Yeah.
like
Yes.
American, which is now Steinhoffels. And we kind of went over that one, and we actually had it lowered, if I remember right, 5 or 10 feet from what it was. Another memory question, and Brian, maybe this is you. When the DOT put in them berms, what are they, 30-foot berms? They were for sound, correct?
Yeah, I don't know what the height is on those berms, but the ramp configuration is changing as well. So the intersection's going to a tight diamond. So in the photo, that's the aerial photo, you can see where that berm is coming off of Ryan Road. That's where the new layout's going to be. So this sign, I'm guessing, is close to 1,000 feet from the freeway. It was visible coming on the ramp. It's not really visible from the freeway itself. So I don't see the need to make it bigger. You're still so far away from the freeway that you're going to use GPS to find this. I'm not driving up and down the freeway to find it.
And then the square footage of the sign. We didn't discuss that. Is this changing in any way, shape, or form the square footage of the sign from what they
It's
have?
going to exceed 100 square feet. So they're proposing 167, so a variance would be also required to go larger than 100 square feet. So it's a height and size, it'd be two variances.
What do we currently have for size? Do you know, Pete? Is it, 5 foot by 21 feet, or what have you?
It's 31 feet 4 inches, and the height of that, maybe the applicant could explain what the height of that.
Oh, on our
current
drawings,
sign-
it's 5'4" by 31.
That's the proposed one, but
Yeah.
you're asking what the original one is.
Yes.
They don't have that on there. But they're proposing a new sign, which requires a variance anyway. They're taking it down, and
Okay, I guess what I'm wondering, proportionally, are we talking about the same square footage sign?
It's approximately the same. I can't say it's identical, but it's
But in the ballpark, I mean,
Right.
to the eyeball, you probably wouldn't tell a difference.
I think staff has more of a concern with the height than the size.
I would agree with you. I do think, the height is a concern. It's been a while because of construction that I've been down that way on Ryan to say if I try to take a look to see what I can see. Has anybody taken a ride by lately? You know, I'm kind of thinking 40 feet may do it, or Chris offered up. I don't think a number was mentioned. But
No, just, again, if everyone feels here, you leave it as is too, with the larger sign, but the same height, whatever they want to do.
Greg, any feelings one way or the other?
I guess I agree with Chris a little bit. If it needs to go up a little bit to get over some trees or something for safety, I could see that. Going all the way to 80, I don't know that it really needs that.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with the height too. We start cluttering up the corner. We put one sign and everything.
I would agree, and I mean, we grandfathered them in, and we talked pretty
Right.
extensively when the American pole rotted out, and we had to replace that.
Right.
And we hit a kind of a grandfather situation. And again, given what that intersection is, we really want to keep some integrity there. I guess that's the right word. I think over signage in the variance to me is just a little bit of an overreach, I think. You were going to say something, sir? I think you got cut off.
Well, my question was, the commission makes the comment that 60 foot would be sufficient for visibility, then how come Steinhoffels didn't get brought down to 60, or IKEA brought down to 60, the zoning notwithstanding? I understand
Yeah.
IKEA was zoned in and of itself, so they're pretty much the only ones in Oak Creek that have access to those lines for signage. So I guess
Correct.
my question, why not 60 feet for them then?
Well, because they were grandfathered in, as it was stated, the pilot was pre our ordinance, and
IKEA I'm referring.
the IKEA, because
Sure, well, maybe
it's a zoning district
I
in
can shed some
itself.
light. How many dealerships are in Wisconsin
How many
for
what?
you? So you're serving, essentially you got 6 places in Wisconsin. This is the 48th in the entire country, and they draw a customer from, we saw it in the opening weekend, from northern Wisconsin, Illinois, and as part of being a destination retailer, a regional, actually a national retailer, and that's part of the package that they presented and felt that it needed that because they are bringing so many people from out of the area. Dangerous when you start to say, well, they got this, so why can't we get that? Circumstances are different, and I think that the variance process kind of tries to take that into account your request should stand on its own merits, as their request stood on their own merits. So in making that comparison, and again, if we go down that path, and it's a slippery one, then the person next to you, well, now they're blocking visibility to my sign, so I want to go higher than that. That's why we don't do that. That's why each case is judged on its own merits, and that's why the Plan Commission makes the decisions that they have. And in some cases, the mayor, you're absolutely right. Existing agreements and documents kind of dictate how the city proceeds with those types of things.
Because I can tell you the Steinhoffels, if that would have been a ground-up build, they would not have gotten what they changed to when it was American and Madison. And I think our city planner pretty much covered it with the IKEA. It was a special zoning in itself, and that is the only zoning that exists within the city, is that B6 district. So a little bit different. And again, I think you kind of illustrated the point when you said, well, they got it, why can't we get it? So if we give it to you, we're going to have to turn around and give it to Wendy's if they ask, or if McDonald's asks for an 80-footer, or anybody else within that location. So again, you kind of made the point right there. If we go down that slope, at what point do we cut it off? Because our ordinance does state what our ordinance states, so we are following our ordinance. So the variance could be, if this commission so feels it, to jack it up 10 feet or 20 feet or 80 feet if they so felt. But that's a decision solely within them, because they're going to have to deal with every case beyond it. Because as our planner said, it's a case-by-case deal. Any comments from the commission? Fred?
You keep the original sign that you have now, but just jack it up.
Well,
I
no,
think
it's
we
a,
should- I think
no,
we
they're
should-
going to a monopole versus the two legs.
Okay.
The goalpost style one. I don't know what the official thing is on that. So, I mean, they're going to replace the base and do the whole thing. We'll probably have a better product. I think really the question becomes the height.
And so do we just let them go with the sign, the size that they're looking for, but bring it down in height to match whatever we need to match for the area? Is that what the commission thinks we should do?
I'm still a little curious about the height.
Well, we bring it down
Actually-
to match the whatever's the zoning for the area. So if we need to bring it down to 40 feet, but we allow them to make the sign.
We definitely wouldn't make it go shorter than it is.
Right,
I don't
right.
agree with that. I don't agree with that one.
Right, 40, but it's 40 feet?
40 feet.
So, but the sign would be a little bigger than what they had, so if it came down,
I-
or
I-
even it's a little higher, fine.
I'm not worried about the sign size myself.
Yeah, no, me neither. That's my point is the size of it. It's gonna be just a hair bigger-ish, right? And so what do you
guess
guys want to go with?
I guess that's why I asked. I know the pilot's probably not the best example. I'm trying to think who else is there. But Pete?
If you look at the signage that are up and down the interstate, they've all been approved in the 80s and the 90s. We haven't been adding additional
By the way,
tall
when he says
signs.
80s and 90s, he's talking about years, not height.
Yeah. That, the La Quinta, the only new one in that highway corridor is IKEA. And as we covered earlier tonight, that was a completely separate zoning district, comparing apples and oranges. You're not comparing the same zoning districts. So the idea is that, Sign-Offals had it. Well, they did have it. We didn't add it. If they were going from 40 to 80 or 90, they proposed, I think we'd be facing the same issues we are right here. They had a 95, they went down to 90, they went a little bit shorter. Now, is it a ton? No, but the height did shrink. Everything has gotten shorter over time. We, are not trying to increase height over time. So that's just something that historically the city has gone toward. I mean, there was a time when you could have an 80-foot tall, 90-foot tall sign. Now it's 25 feet. And so it's up to the commission to decide if we want to add to that number of tall signs along our interstate corridor. Is it appropriate? Or is it to keep it the same 40-foot height is acceptable and talk about size?
Okay, so let's take the height first, as long as we've been focusing on the height. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. If you'd like to come up, sir, please approach the podium. We'll need your name and address.
My name is Joe Heller. I live at 8527 South Brayborn, a resident of Oak Creek. I don't work for Kenwood. I don't work for the city, but I used to be a truck driver. If I'm a rookie truck driver coming from Georgia, and I don't know where that Kenworth is, is it Kenworth? Yes. And I don't know where it is, and I'm coming off either 94 or 27th Street, I would really like to see that sign. It would help me. I have nothing to gain, but I don't think the sign's going to hurt me. That's what I have to add.
Thank you for your input, sir. All commission?
I say on the height, if you're gonna do anything, nothing more than an additional 10 feet or leave it the same.
I agree. I'd leave it 40 or go up if it truly is a visibility issue with trees or the berm or whatever is blocking the sign from the freeway. Go up high enough to get over that. I don't know that it needs to go all the way up to 80 to get over that stuff.
One thing to note, excuse me if I may speak, I think if we can increase the visibility, the likelihood of needing the semi on the roof will probably decrease. So I believe, if we can get up higher and our argument was that semi on the roof helped with visibility, if the removal of that would, once we get up high enough, then obviously that would become secondary having it there. So I think that would be, a fair trade.
Go ahead.
How tall is the building?
Approximately 20 feet, I would say. It's just an estimate, but it's
Thank you.
Any other commissioner want to weigh in? Okay, I guess my feelings are, to me, it's insignificant whether that's just kind of a non-starter going 80 feet for the semi. That's my opinion. I don't know where that berm sits. I was on the DOT when the sound berms were going in. 30 feet sticks in my head. I couldn't even tell you if there's trees on there. I'd give them 10 feet max to move it up, but I don't want to see this getting out of norm with anybody. I do agree with the gentleman that came up. If you're looking for him, you want to find him. You want to find that Kenworth sign. It's not quite a restaurant. If you're looking for this Kenworth sign, you probably need service and are in trouble if that's your job. But that's all I would allow. But it's the commission, and you guys can reflect it in your motion.
Quick question. Could we see Google Earth to see what it really looks like?
Really good idea. And just, go
Showing up
ahead,
on your
Pete.
screens or not. So just to get you your bearings here, my cursor isn't cooperating as nicely. But this is Kenworth, and then I'll bring down the view, the people view. So there's a berm. On the screen. On the left, my cursor seems to be working better than on the screen to the right. This is the berm that they're talking about that's impacting their view to their site. And their sign is currently up where my cursor is showing up on the screen on the left. And then I'll do the drop down just to get an idea what it looks like. So let's see here. Right. Just bringing you up to see where we're at, give you an idea. Here's the berm to the left of the screen. My cursor is not showing. There we are. There's the berm. I'm going to jump back on the freeway since I apparently got on the off ramp. So actually, let me back up a little bit because the trees are in the way here. Back up one click.
Pete, if I can interrupt you 1 second. That berm is just a temporary stockpile for the interchange construction. That's going away. Yes.
And the berm is over on the left. Here you can see the night sign. I did look up to see the value in sign is 86 feet tall. So to give you an idea of what the Kenworth sign would be if it were to raise up. And I believe the Kenworth sign is
Wow. I guess I see why you want to raise it.
Ryan, did that berm already go away?
Not yet.
Do you have an idea of when that berm will be going away?
With the construction project, should be finished this year.
Oh, with the bridge?
Yes.
Don't know about your scheduling and when you need a new sign, but would it be advantageous to wait till the bridge is done? Until this is all brand new and then we can look at it with new eyes on how high you should have it?
Well, what drove the event to replace it, the conversation, was the fact that it needs completely new lighting inside. And so that's several
So the
grand.
need's there.
And so we need to do something, and that was the time was right. So
So Brian, the berm's gonna go, but the greenery, the trees, whatever those bushes are, those ain't going though, are they?
Just to note the view on the screen currently, we've passed the off-ramp.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, the Google Earth view we have now, we've passed the off-ramp and we can't see the sign yet.
Yeah, that's Pewits already, right? No, you're off to Raleigh.
Other side.
If I may. But to be fair, I mean, if the goal is for every business to have visibility from 2 miles away on the freeway, that has some very serious implications on the character of a community.
We're not looking for visibility from 2 miles away, just from before the off-ramp.
I know that even an 80-foot pole is going to give you visibility coming southbound, or northbound, I'm sorry,
Well,
before the off-ramp. That off-ramp's really far back.
All right, so here's a view from the, right before the off, here's the right-hand turn lane. You can't even see, I mean, you're not, bringing it up 80 feet is not going to do anything for visibility before that off-ramp.
Pete, is it to the right where that semi is here? Just see the semi? Just above it? It's right there. So that we know it's not going to be hidden by the trees there. It's just a matter of,
Things are going to be able to read that sign from that distance, if it's 80 feet up in the air, if it's 40 feet over the air.
no, you're correct about that, Pete. You are correct about that. Coming south, you can't see it at all through those trees.
I do agree with Commissioner Grillo as well, though. Most times, even if it's a scheduled repair or you're looking because something's going on, you do have an address. You know you're probably going to be getting off the exit anyways. It's a matter of once you're off the exit, you're trying to look for it to help guide you into having some work done, possibly.
Sure that berm's going, Brian?
Using it as landfill, right?
I have a little concern with that because even if it does, I mean, I don't know without some documentation of what level it's going to be and what the plan is for plants and growth and that sort of thing. It's kind of hard to really, I don't know if you have anything that documents that, but. I mean, because if we decide this today and we decide it based upon the berm, and then a year from now it's not gone, in 5 years it's not gone.
Well, they're
the
making it a
cost of
diamond,
redesigning again.
so, I mean, we know what the height of the bridge is going to be. We know what the height of the expressway is. We can kind of guess. But again, commission, what are we thinking? We can't sit here all night and I think we've come to the conclusion it's not going to be 80. Is that fair to say? Okay. So one of our choices is 40. And I threw out a 10-foot on top of that. I mean,
And code says it should be
40.
40?
Right now,
That's okay?
the sign is compliant with code.
Okay.
As it currently exists. They're asking for special dispensation to double the height of the sign and slightly increase the size.
I think maybe your question was, if this was a brand new development looking for a pole sign that was permitted in that zoning district, it'd be 25, correct?
It would be 25. Go back to 40 being grandfathered in.
40 is grandfathered in, 25 is the current code. My apologies on that.
again, consistency, I think, is kind of the rule of the day, too. So again, usually we go down. And again, we're not going any less than 40. But
And I
again,
don't think 10 is going to do anything, so why not just stay with code?
I get that is the question.
One
Brian,
thing,
what's 10 feet going to do for us?
I'm okay with the 40, but do the variance for the larger sign.
Okay.
I agree.
Greg? Okay. Guess that's what we're getting. So Is that pretty well understood? We're going to keep the 40-foot height, but you're going to have the larger sign. And of course, you'll get your illumination back, which should help you. So with that, we could entertain a motion on 6A.
Go ahead.
Johnson moves that the Plan Commission make a motion to grant a sign variance allowing the installation of a 40-foot tall and 167.11 square foot in the area pole sign located at 9350 South 22nd Street.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Bill, aye.
Lorick, aye. Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck, guys. Sorry we couldn't get what you needed, but we really have to look what we're going to do future-wise throughout the area. Not just here, but everywhere along the interstate that we border. So, thank you. Item 5B, another public hearing for another sign appeal. This one's at 7978 South Main Street, and this is for the city of Oak Creek that would allow some window coverings on our new public facilities. Pete?
Yes, I'll read the public hearing notice into the record. City of Oak Creek noticed a public hearing before the Plan Commission. Public hearing for a sign appeal will be held on Tuesday, June 12, 2018 at 6 p.m. Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. The appellant is City of Oak Creek, tax key number 813-9050-000. Property is located at 7978 South Main Street. Is requesting a variance from section 17.0334, part of the General Development Plan and Regulating Plan, which states that eye-level signs be limited to one sign per 12 linear feet of tenant space frontage on an entry facade, and that eye-level signs don't cover more than 10% of the clear glazing. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install two eye-level signs that exceed 10% coverage of the clear glazing for the tenant space located at 7978 South Main Street. Zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD, Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Development District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 23rd day of May, 2018. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, signed Mayor Daniel J. Bukowitz, Chairman. This is a public hearing. If you have any questions or comments regarding the sign appeal, please step up to the podium, state your name and address the commissioner with your questions or comments. This public hearing is now open.
Great, thank you, Pete. As Pete said, it's a public hearing. We will make 3 calls. This will be the first call. Second call? Come on up, Doug. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Doug Seymour, 650 East Deer Ridge, Cordell Creek. And I guess for lack of a better term, we are kind of the applicants on this one. And I just wanted to explain and frame what is before you this evening, and why this is for your consideration this evening. It's not really a choice between having no window coverings there. I think that you can all see the obvious pitfall in having clear glazing going directly into a bathroom facility. So right now, there is some translucent or opaque film covering there. That technically is in violation of our ordinance. And while we have a very prescriptive ordinance with respect to how businesses in Drexel Town Square are handled with respect to signage and glazing, I think there's an important distinction to be made when you're looking into a restroom, and certainly privacy concerns that are certainly unique to this leased space and this kind of public space. Now, given that, your choice is between essentially what you see out there right now, which is a clear white translucent glazing, or given an opportunity to kind of provide some color, some life to the street and what otherwise can be a little bit of a sterile environment, we had asked our marketing folks to see what they could do to liven up that space. And without, planting a big restroom sign on the windows, they came up with an idea which kind of highlights a lot of the activities that take place with the entire city. And this isn't a sign that's saying, eat at the food truck rally on Wednesday, or shop at the farmer's market, but it just kind of highlights everything that's going on with the city. It's kind of a whimsical take that, again, provides color to the street, while at the same time really providing that privacy, which you absolutely have to have. And again, I can't stress this enough. I mean, it's not a choice between having this and having nothing. I mean, if the Plan Commission is fine with having the translucent glazing there, I think that's entirely appropriate. But I don't foresee any circumstances where you can't have any glaze, any covering to those windows. So this is really an attempt to, again, without directly advertising any one product or service, it kind of highlights a visual interest for those who are maybe at the splash pad, maybe at the many events that are taking place there, that provides a little color to the street. And this is something that staff has worked with our marketing folks on and feel it's an appropriate use of that window space and provides necessary privacy for those restroom users. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Doug. That was our second call. We're still in a public hearing. So third and final call. Would anybody like to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing and move on to 6B. And that is consideration of the window dressing for our new restrooms. Commissioners, comments? Chelsea?
Okay, can you give us a little more information on what exists today and what's possibly changing, what the recommendation is?
Sure. Do we have I think we took the photos before even the translucent glazing was on. But if you would take a look at your screens, and Pete just took that off there. Sorry. Anything that you see that's covered in that film right now, with the exception of that blue crossbar going over the door, that's all white, translucent.
This is a vast improvement. In my opinion, we need it. It's representative of the city. Although we don't comment on content, I will. I wish it said Oak Creek somewhere in there. But, across the top. But again.
And if I may, I think as we kind of reevaluated and wanted to be sensitive to the goals of the DTS MUPD with respect to signage, I think we're going to be potentially reducing the lettering on the kind of blue crossbar, which says Play, Explorer, what have you. And I think that the proposal at this point in time is just to have the website up there. Visit oakcreek.com.
Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to the wording up there. I just wanted some identification that it is a city facility.
Does it say restroom on it?
And this is, well, not the subject of the tonight's hearing. I mean, there will be, and as Pete's pointing out, there will be a flag sign that will be consistent with the types of signs that are in Drexel Town Square, as well as there's some very simple identification vinyl signage on the doorway showing the hours of operation.
Now I can lead a little insight into it. On behalf of all the farmer market vendors and guests, I mean, you guys knocked it out of the park. That's a gorgeous facility. Everyone's using it. Everyone's super excited about it because in other farmers markets, they're using porta potties. So that we have an indoor facility is really great.
And honestly, had there not been a need to provide that privacy, we would be proposing clear glazing on this, because I think it's important for those storefronts to maintain their clear glazing. But this, again, it's not a case of this or nothing. I mean, there's going to be some coverage of over those windows. Just a matter of how you, as a plan commission, feel it's appropriate to provide that screening.
Fred, anything?
Yeah, is this the only design that you people have right now that you recommended, or are there other opportunities for different?
Well, I think as a concept, when we described what the goals of the city were, I think this is a working with our marketing agency is a good concept that they came up with. And I think the danger is, especially in this venue, to try and design or graphically design a sign can get us into trouble sometimes. So whether, reasonable people can disagree on what is good art or what is good graphics or what is good design, but I think that, given that, again, the charge to our marketing folks was be a little bit whimsical. We don't want this to scream restrooms at you. And we wanted just to kind of add some color to the street, add some activity, and in a stretch that between Pizza Man and Gigi's that really there's not a lot of activity along that wall in terms of color or in terms of texture. And I can appreciate how individually you may say, well, what if we did this to this, or what if we changed the color from blue to green, but I think that that's probably, it's difficult to design that at this level, and I think we have to trust our marketing professionals that have recommended this in terms of the design of the sign. Certainly, as to whether or not that's even there, that's totally within the purview of the Plan Commission.
And that's really it. Like I said, I made a comment on content also. I just wanted the city to be identified, and they said maybe the website, which I think would be an excellent idea. But other than that, I do think it's pretty much a no-brainer to put it in there to shield them restrooms, and I don't think it's overkill. So, Chris, anything? Greg? Dawn?
No, I like it. I like it. It's got one basic color, so you can always direct people towards it. That it's our own, it's not stock photography or anything like that. I like it.
Brian?
Well, other than rearranging the bathrooms so you don't look right into the doors, we need to have some sort of screening there. I'm okay with the clear glazing. I don't care for this whimsical pattern, but we're not here for content. It's
True. So, okay. Are we okay with going over the glazing here? The proportions. If we are, motion to accept.
Clerk will move that the commission approve a variance allowing the applicant to install full window coverings on the south elevation of the public restroom tenant space located at 332 South Town Squareway.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnson, aye.
By the way,
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
I'd like to take the liberty, going out on a limb, I think most of the residents are here for items F and G. If we could skip up there, and we also have one of our aldermen is having back issues, and I'd like to kind of have him here for this one. So I apologized if you were C or D, but again, I'd like to take those two items up. So hopefully HSI is prepared. So we will move to item 6F, and that's consideration of a certified survey map submitted by Tony DeRosa from HSI Properties at the Apple Tower Development for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way. Carrie?
The proposal is to redivide the lots for a multifamily plan unit development, which is next on the agenda. This is the proposed map. You'll see that there are some lots that are going to be combined into Lot 1, and then Lot 2 is actually currently existing. There is going to be an extension of the existing Orchard Way, which is the public road, that would divide the two lots. Wetlands must be delineated and shown on the map prior to recording. There is a notation in your staff report that states that this is consistent with a previous approval for CSM affecting these properties. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with that and the recommended conditions, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Tony DeRosa, HSI Properties LLC, for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way be approved, subject to conditions 1 through 5. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant here? There you go, Tony. Beat me to it.
Good evening. My name is Tony DeRosa with HSI Properties, 18500 West Corporate Drive in Brookfield. My only comment on this agenda item is in regards to condition number 5 that was listed in the packet. They had a condition for a time frame of 4 months that should the certified survey map not be recorded, should the sale of the properties not occur within 4 months of the date of Common Council approval of the certified survey map. My request this evening would be for that time period of 4 months to be modified to 9 months. And the reason for that is 4 months from approval of the certified survey map, which I would anticipate would occur in probably the month of July. 4 months from then would push us into middle of the fall. And what I would like to avoid is having to come back on November 1st on a technicality and say, I need 4 more months. So that's why I'd respectfully request 9 months.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
The 4-month suggestion was made based on conversations that occurred, and it was deemed reasonable that 120 days was acceptable and appropriate. Staff is willing to offer 6 months, and that was also discussed with the city administrator. If the Plan Commission feels that additional time would be warranted, then it would be up to the commission to make that recommendation.
Thank you, Carrie. We do have a few. Tony, you want to go on with your? You have anything else?
On that item, no.
Yeah.
On the next item, I do.
I was going to suggest that perhaps some of the answers may be, that some of the questions that the residents have may be answered by some of the presentation. Certainly
I
will
think so, but
provide a basis for those questions rather than.
I think it's really going to come with the next item.
I think so,
versus
too.
a certified survey map.
So I'd be happy to have a brief presentation to walk through this evening. So if you'd like me to do that,
as long as
or
you're up here, I think so. It'll just save us time on the second piece. Even though, keep in mind, we're on the certified survey map right now.
Okay, so this evening I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we're here this evening to discuss, a little history with the project, and from the last version of this plan you originally saw a few months back. So the overall property that you see on the screen before you is comprised of roughly 20.5 acres. The back third of it, to your right, is currently zoned RM1, which is the rezoning classification that we are requesting for the balance of the property. The other 2/3 of the site predominantly are comprised of B2 and B4 zoning districts. As previously mentioned, we'll be requesting RM1 PUD. Just in terms of some context, the B4 zoning, which comprises an overwhelming majority of this property today, roughly 60%, in terms of what's allowed under B4, B4 would allow a maximum height of 50 feet and a maximum square footage of approximately 215,000 feet of commercial space. B4 zoning also allows uses such as funeral homes, big box retail, grocery stores, restaurants, theaters, bowling alleys, drugstores, etc. The 27th Street Corridor Plan has a handful of recommendations that dovetail in with our proposal this evening. The first one is the future land use map designation in the 27th Street Corridor Plan does identify this site as mixed density residential, which is consistent with our plan. General design guidelines for the 27th Street Corridor match up nicely with our plan in terms of respecting the natural topography. Buildings should be 2 stories in height, which ours are, and buildings should be located closer to the street. It should also provide for choices for quality housing types, sizes, and styles that meet the diverse needs of residents in the community. Our proposed development is consistent with these goals of this plan, and we feel will be catalytic for the rest of this corridor. All good projects start with market demand. Is there market demand for a project like this today? I think we have the luxury of having a great case study that the city's been able to experience, and we've been able to be obviously very involved in, and that's our Drexel Ridge development in the city of Oak Creek. We've had great success with that project. We were able to accelerate our second phase of that development and starting that prior to completing our first phase. And we're here this evening looking to continue to expand on our activity and development in this community. We feel strongly that there's pent-up demand for a modern luxury development as this type in the city of Oak Creek. A lot of people are looking to sell their homes but want to stay in Oak Creek. The city of Oak Creek has an older rental stock historically with dated finishes and lack of amenities. In terms of target demographics, we're targeting a demographic that's looking for an upscale suburban community to call home. We're attracting empty nesters, baby boomers, young professionals, and many of those that are choosing to rent. We appeal to a lot of area employers. And one of the things that has surprised us the most with our Drexel Ridge development is the amount of job transfers into southeastern Wisconsin that are occurring. When we developed Drexel Ridge, our plan was to develop really for the people of Oak Creek, and we're still attracting roughly probably half of that. But we're seeing just a significant amount of influx of people that are moving into southeastern Wisconsin, and so many of them are choosing to call Oak Creek home, which is a great characteristic for everybody here. Our development is a unique community. We're not looking to cater to those that are looking to live in 3- and 4-story buildings with underground parking and elevators. These are we have oversized attached and detached garages. Every apartment home has its own front door, and a lot of people really appreciate that. Our proposed development, the first plan we shared with you a few months ago on a very high level conceptual basis was 280 apartments. We've scaled that back down to 225. We've been working closely with staff since you last saw me and been able to incorporate a lot of their comments and suggestions into what you see here this evening. Our overall parking count exceeds the code. We're at 2.5 or 2.48 stalls per apartment, and we've reduced our density from 13 units to just shy of 11 units per acre. We've also had some preliminary discussions with the Wisconsin DOT regarding access points, some of which some city staff has been copied in, and preliminary feedback from Wisconsin DOT has been favorable with our conceptual plan. This development plan is 2-story. They're townhouse-style buildings, more of a condo or townhome type feel. These are high-end apartment homes spread out over multiple 2-story buildings, not a single large building. In terms of apartment amenities, we'll have, as mentioned earlier, attached and detached garages. We have oversized windows. We provide quartz countertops, private balconies, open concept floor plans. Every apartment has a washer and dryer, central heat and air conditioning, similar to what you'd find in a single-family home, and a stainless steel appliance package. In terms of community amenities, which really sets our developments apart from others, we build a state-of-the-art clubhouse and pool, which is a significant investment, but we feel it's a great amenity for our residents. We provide a first-class fitness center. We have a lot of open green space, which a lot of the residents, they like the aspect in terms of being able to walk their dogs and whatnot, as well as having on-site professional property management. The screen before you shows our site plan overlaid onto the Google aerial. We've also included the Villas Healthcare project just to the south and west for full context. As mentioned earlier, we've scaled back the density from 280 to 225 apartments. We have a combination of different building types. We have a combination of 20 units per building, as well as a handful of buildings that have 15 units per building. We've accommodated into this plan you see this evening the city's request for Orchard Way to extend through the development as a public street. We've also had discussions with city staff regarding a potential public-private partnership, if you will, for a proposed city park, which would be adjacent to the water tower. We also were in receipt of the letter from Milwaukee County Parks and regarding some of their comments that I'd like to briefly address. In terms of stormwater management is regulated by both the DNR as well as the city engineering department. Currently, there already exists an easement for stormwater that goes onto the county's county-owned land at the far northeast corner of the property. So that will be controlled in that fashion. Also, there was reference in the letter regarding a high-quality wetland that's located in Falk Park. We identified that from the DNR's website, and it's roughly about 100 feet east of our property line. We have about a 19-foot buffer from our property line to our parking lot. So in total, from the area that they had any concerns about, we're roughly about 120 feet setback. City zoning code requires a 10-foot impervious surface setback from all wetlands, so I think we've provided an adequate buffer to satisfy any county concerns. And one of their other comments was in regards to staking the property line to avoid any encroachments, and we don't have any issue with that as well. The next few slides in the presentation are real, just high-level renderings. I'm not here this evening to talk about architecture. Just wanted to give you kind of a picture. We're going to be using this real similar materials, high quality, cement board siding, brick, a lot of gable details, real high-end design. When we come back for full site plan presentation, at that point we'll have our architect walk you through all the materials. In closing, a couple of highlights and project benefits I'd just like to touch on. This is another project that we're going to be involved with to provide an alternative modern housing option in a growing community. It meets demand for new multifamily communities in the city of Oak Creek. The property is currently assessed for just shy of $700,000. We're going to make roughly a $35 million investment in this property. These are critical tax dollars for the city for all the services that the city provides. Between this proposed development and our Drexel Ridge development, we'll have created upwards of $60 million in new tax base for the city over the course of 3 to 4 years. This is a project that's going to appeal to a broad demographic. It's a use that we feel is the highest and best use for this property along the 27th Street corridor and has the potential to be catalytic in this area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Seeing as we are on a certified survey map, I think most of the questions have to do with the rezone, but we're kind of blending the two in here. It's a little goofy. Going back to the certified survey map, commissioners, any questions? Greg?
I guess I'm just looking for a little clarification. One of the, this is in my district, one of the main concerns that I've heard from residents is the connection of the road going through. I'm only bringing it up, it's on the CSM here. Can staff, I guess, go in detail as to the importance of putting the road through versus the development going in without any connection at all to the neighborhood or to Orchard Way?
I'll just kind of comment, and I'm actually going to ask Assistant Chief Kresick to come up. It's really about connectivity. As you can see, Orchard Way is dead-ended on both ends. This is really a connectivity. I know this ain't the popular thing for the people in the neighborhood. I represented that neighborhood, but this development cannot happen without that road. And I'll bring Assistant Chief Kresick up to explain the importance of the connectivity and the access that the fire department needs, not only them, but our police officers as well. But that road, that was the deal. It really has to go in there to connect our neighborhoods. And if staff would like to make a comment on it, feel free.
Apologies. When we do neighborhood plans, and we have done a neighborhood plan for this area, we have the future streets laid out so that when people make an investment, buy a home, buy a condo, own property, that they hopefully do so knowing what the future plans are for the area. And this street that has shown on our official map for quite some time, it is important, even having said that, to make connections for efficient provision of services, whether it's plowing, garbage, public safety, and we'll hear Assistant Chief Kresick talk about that, police. But more importantly is, neighborhoods do need to be connected. And one other thing as well is that the Wisconsin Department of Transportation doesn't necessarily want to promote for local trips having to go on the 27th Street or any state highway for that matter. So as part of the access management plan that they have adopted for 27th Street, they have really restricted access to known points, logical points, so that every property doesn't necessarily have to have a driveway or two on the 27th Street. It really is going to making sense given what they expect to be development be on not only the Oak Creek side, but the Franklin side. So it really is about having connected neighborhoods, and I think that provides long-term value to the neighborhood. And I know that it's not going to be supported by everybody, and we certainly understand that. But for the long-term viability of what we do as a community, it is vitally important that we have connections between our neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Assistant Chief Kresick, would you like to pop up, make a few comments regarding fire department's concerns?
Mike Kresick, Fire Department, and I'm going to speak in some generalities about access to any new development. We certainly went through this extensively at the previous development off Pennsylvania and Rawson, and I think it's a lot of the same concepts here. From the fire department's perspective, the issue is access to the site, multiple points of access. Now, there's many ways to accomplish that. We look for the easiest access points, especially when you've got a dense population base. Apartment complex, we look for at least 2 access points into the complex. Ideally, we look for 3 access points. That gives us a better chance of getting in there quickly and addressing emergency needs in a timely fashion. Why do we look for multiple access points? It's a little bit of a disaster planning on our part. Blocked access roads, increased amount of traffic. We talked about other city services besides the fire department, plowing, garbage pickup. All those can contribute to clogging up access routes for us. So when I speak in generalities about access to a site, especially in a new apartment development, we're looking for multiple ways in.
Yeah.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you. So anyways, we are still on the certified survey map. One's definitely on zoning. The other one really concerns vehicle traffic. Would the residents like to speak now, or would you like to come up on the next item? Ma'am, would you? Yeah, you have to come up to the microphone, please. Elizabeth or Vicky? Elizabeth? Okay. Name and address, please.
Elizabeth Landrum, 8603 South Melrose Drive. I live at the foot of the water tower. We'd be the first property if you're coming through the new property and turned right. We live at the bottom of that street. So I prepared some remarks. It's called Diverting New Development Traffic Through Apple Creek Subdivision. Our subdivision has narrow roads with no lane dividers. When larger cars or trucks park on both sides of the road, there's only enough space for one-way traffic to move through at a very limited slow speed right now. Our subdivision has no overhead lighting. Very few homes have lighting at night. This means that it is hard to see where the street edges are and the yards begin. There are culverts on all the properties, and many of them are steep-sided. Our property at 8603 South Melrose quite frequently had cars drive into the culvert during the night. 10 years ago, we moved in 13 years ago, we asked the city to install those black and white posts along the edge of the culvert to alert nighttime drivers to the corner of our property, because they were always driving into the culvert and damaging our property besides themselves. These have been knocked over by drivers. One of our neighbors, who's here tonight, used to bring over duct tape to repair the damaged posts. We requested that he stop doing so that the city could see whenever it broke. This should tell you just how dark it is in here at night. Number 3, the size of our subdivision, the size of the new subdivision to our north will house about 500 cars. From personal experience, I know that they will choose to use this subdivision. You're calling it, what did you call that? Access?
They'll choose to use probably Orchard Way, correct?
Yeah, Orchard Way. This shortcut through our subdivision to get to the grocery stores, gas stations, and other shortcuts to Howell Avenue. I do so now. I use Liberty to get to Woodman's. It saves a lot of hassle. The difference between Liberty and 6th Street to get to here and ours is that it is lighted, curbed, guttered, and has sidewalks. We have none of that. I don't have to wait through the light at Butts and Howell and wait a long time and sometimes multiple times at the light just to get through, and then wait again to make the left into the store property. Reasonable people are going to do the same thing getting out of that new subdivision and onto Butts. You're diverting a lot of traffic into our subdivision when there are going to be 500 cars in there. They are going to quickly learn to avoid the light at Butts and 27th, too. This means not just fire trucks and police going through our subdivision, but many of the new tenants from the property to our north. The subdivision was not designed 20 years ago for that kind of traffic. 20 years ago, there was an empty, abandoned property where Woodman sits and where Drexel Town Square now sits. Today's situation is very different. Were any of you here on the Planning Commission when our subdivision was planned?
No.
None of you,
maybe
right?
Well, Fred, you might have been an alderman at the time.
So none of you even remember how our little bitty property came into being with that little bitty road. Today's situation is very, very different. We're all reasonable people. We are avoiding Drexel also. After all, Oak Creek has lavishly put up signs telling us about IKEA and all of its trucks, all of the traffic on Drexel, and prudent people do not want to be involved in the heavy traffic with cars not familiar to the area. The only prudent way through is through our subdivision. Next, your 20-year-old plan is now out of date with the new reality. Please, please do not let our subdivision bear the brunt of that. Please divert this new traffic into the undeveloped land to the east of our subdivision. It's currently for sale. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did anyone even know that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Which land?
It's immediately to our east
Immediately to the east of you.
of our
Oh,
subdivision.
yes, it's been up for sale for a while.
But it's undeveloped. You still have a chance to move all this traffic away from what is really inadequate for what you're proposing. Please don't divert this new traffic onto the undeveloped land to the east of our subdivision on Pewds. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want a copy of this?
If you'd like to submit it, you can, ma'am.
Be glad to. Do you have a pen?
We'll take the speakers and then we'll just try to address them as best we can. Next, we have Ron Schweister. Is Ron here? Vicky Holler.
And maybe before she gets up, if I've heard someone wondering where we can sign up. I mean, if you there are forms available in the back of the room for appearance forms. If you could fill it out and just hand that in to the mayor when you speak or when he calls for that, that just helps us to keep track of record keeping and for the minutes. So I believe.
Welcome, Vicky. Name and address, please.
Vicki Heller, 8527 South Brayburn Drive, Oak Creek, 53154. I want to point out that several years ago, there was an attempt to build a large condominium area where these apartments are now proposed. There was an arborist that got up and testified that even the car fumes would damage the forest. It's designated as a rare forest due to the type of trees that grow back in that woods. And the traffic would totally destroy that within a couple of years, as well as the extra traffic from people wanting to study nature, taking walks back there, and just wanting to enjoy the wooded area. Also, when we moved in 15 years ago, it was wonderful. We could go out and look at things and not have to be quite so careful of traffic, which now would totally cease. There would be no more evening walks because, as stated before, the roads are narrow. The traffic is going to be a lot heavier for people taking shortcuts. It just would not work out with kids, dogs. The total subdivision would suffer if this road is to go through. Even though it may not look like it on a map, individuals with health disorders that require clean air are going to soon have to leave the community because they are going to be unable to live with the air conditions that would change with this type of traffic.
Thank you very much. Did Ron come back in the room? If not, I'll move on from Ron. Is on O'Brien? Okay. Aaron Eaton, please. Hi, Aaron. Yep.
I'm Erin Eaton. I live at 2140 West Orchard Way, and I'm actually usually on these maps that they show of the aerial view. I'm 2 away from the water tower. So I have a very, very vested interest. I'm not against this development at all. Frankly, I was worried you were going to put in a Walmart or the Costco. I do own a Costco, just not here. So this is great, but Orchard Way is obviously why I'm here. I guess I would ask all of you to drive by my house and tell me if you think that this is reasonable. I have 2 small children. These are single-family homes. There are a lot of children. As I think her name was Elizabeth. There's no lane dividers. There's no sidewalks. I have neighbors begging me not to ask for sidewalks because they're going to put in $35 million and we're going to be socked with the fee on sidewalks, which doesn't seem fair to me. But I get you need an entrance, we need to be safe. I will say there's been comments about how we should have known what the deal was. I moved in 11 years ago, so I'm kind of a newbie. And it was pretty obvious whatever the plan wasn't going to happen. I don't know if you know the history, but bankruptcy, developers who fled the country. So I didn't know what the deal was, but it seemed like a nice neighborhood. It didn't seem like a place that people were going to be, 500 cars would be driving by to get to Woodman's. The other thing is, and Mayor Dan, you helped me with this. 5 years ago, I was concerned about the traffic and the small children and there not being enough room for kids to walk down the side of the road without getting hit by cars. And we had to fight to get that stop sign in. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just telling you, like, this is very dangerous. So I don't know if it's speed bumps. I don't know if it's stop signs. I don't know if it's sidewalks. I'm not against the development. I'm just asking you to drive by my house and kind of like see the absolute train wreck that is going to come when you put 500 cars driving through to Woodman's right past my house where my kids are on their tricycles. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And last, we have Teresa.
Teresa Kasperzak, 8437 South Cortland Drive. You're talking about my backyard. I'm the 3rd condo in, and I'm on Cortland, and if I just walk up, if I could walk up those 3 properties, I'd be on Orchard Way. I am devastated. I know that I've been ill. I must have missed a meeting. I usually try to be here. Orchard Way, are you not in the woods?
In the woods? I don't believe the woods.
Those woods are protected.
They're not our land. We're not going through the woods with the road.
We're kidding. Like the other gal said, I remember being here and them talking that those woods were protected and they'd never be touched.
They're not going to be touched. We do not own them. They're county
Okay,
land.
well, I don't like that street anyhow.
Fair enough.
Please don't start on our... Yeah, I'm not against the development either. I've been to enough of these meetings. I like the hospital that was going to be 1 story behind my house. This is going to be just in my backyard. It's just going to reach it. Not too happy about that. I always wanted myself, I wanted a couple of funeral homes. They do nice with landscaping. But if you could find another way to do that Orchard Way, it sure would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. I guess just before I go, all very valid concerns, without a doubt. Again, we're really here on the certified survey map, which does include the road, and that is the big thing. In the presentation, again, this is part of the 27th Street escape plan, and the way we have it zoned with our comprehensive plan it does allow for many uses. At some point in time, somebody's going to want that exposure on 27th Street, whether it's this development or something else, and somebody brought up a Costco or a Walmart or something like that. And quite frankly, that could occur. So either way, even if it was a Costco or a Walmart, what we're really looking at is the connectivity of the road, unfortunately. And I've been in that subdivision. I represented that subdivision as an alderman. It's one of the better kept secrets, I think, in Oak Creek. It's a very nice neighborhood, without a doubt. It was put in without sidewalks, streetlights, or sewers. And it's somewhat unique in Oak Creek. We don't allow that a whole lot. And actually, we're going over a comprehensive plan, and some of our engineers can go on about this, on why we do it this way. To put those things in and special assess would just be astronomical in that subdivision. I can't say, I just don't see it happening, and the expense that it would go on. The traffic, you are right, it is going to increase. I'm going to defer to Brian about the road width and the questions that came up with that, because he's our engineer. I will say this, I believe your roads are standard roads, just as ours, without the curbs. So, I mean, even around here, you park one car on each side of the road. It is tough to get through. If the 500 cars, they are going to find their way. They are going to use your subdivision. That probably is a fact. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say they ain't coming through. Many of them will try to go to 27th Street if that's their business too. We do probably have to find a workable way to try to manage what we do. But regardless of what goes there, it's my belief that road is essential no matter what to service that property. I'll let staff talk a little bit about that in case I am mistaken. So, Brian?
No, you're correct. Subdivision roads average in width 22 to 24 feet. This subdivision does not have curbs on it, which is not uncommon. That's our rural section. We don't build that section anymore. We have a type B or an urban section that both have curb and gutters, and urban section will have sidewalks included with it. We also don't do lane delineations on subdivision roads. It's low traffic. It's 25-mile-an-hour speed limits that we don't delineate those roads. As far as lighting, this development just didn't have lighting involved with it when it was constructed. Definitely something that could be assessed to be installed, to put in there. Traffic-wise, I don't know what the breakdown is. I don't imagine you haven't done a TIA yet for this, so I don't know. Not all the traffic is going to run up and down this road. Now, are they going to use it? Absolutely. But if you have 500 cars a day, not all 500 cars are going up and down this road every day. There's other access points. We have a public road to the north and to the south. It's logical to connect those two sections together, and this is where that connection point is being made.
If there's any other comments, Greg, anything?
No, I think the clarification was made. That was the original question I had, was the road. I live in the neighborhood there, so I see the situation that goes on every day in the neighborhood. Originally, I did push to not have the road in. It obviously was explained further to me why it needed to be there. Right now, it being, I believe half of it is zoned B4. I guess in my mind, I figure if it stays B4 and a large business, a Walmart or whatever, could go in there, would the road even go in? Because it wouldn't be needed if there was a giant big box store there. So, I mean, it's tough to imagine, but I have nothing else to say, really. I think it was all pretty well explained by staff.
Engineering can still push for that road to go through with the big box.
Assistant Chief Krasick.
Mike Krasick, Fire Department. I need to provide a clarification. I believe a comment came up during the citizen discussion regarding the use of the side streets for emergency vehicles. You know, our we understand that residential roads are slower speed, residential roads are narrower in width. And we generally use the path of least resistance. Our response to this development, to the apartment complex, would primarily occur Putes to 27, Rawson to 27th Street South, and then into the complex. The multiple access points, obviously, we don't want to respond there for any emergencies. If an emergency does occur, as vehicles approach that scene, we're going to clog up access roads. Residential roads are the last resort for entering that complex.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Siebert?
I'm just curious about the development north of this, of how that Orchard Way comes in.
Colonial Woods you're talking about.
Colonial Woods, yeah.
Yeah, the condo. That currently will tie into there, and there's an officially mapped road to go even to the north of that, but it would never follow through to Drexel due to the wetlands. Am I correct in saying that, Brian?
There's a detention pond in that route now. So that road would connect back up to 27th Street through the parcel.
Eventually, Orchard Way would curve and come up on the north side of Colonial Woods, going up.
Would then go out to 27th.
That's what Brian's saying. So that would.
I'm just looking at another access.
Yeah.
Coming in to take the pressure off of the people on the south.
Chandler, anything?
I want to make sure I understand. So this would be the one main road in this subdivision?
Well,
Orchard
no,
Way?
it would be a pass through. It would be the
This is the
connecting.
public road.
Yes.
You'll see in the next item, there are other access points from 27th Street that are proposed.
Public road.
Well, part of the cul-de-sac, and it's hard to see on the CSM, and we're kind of getting off into the weeds a little bit here, but Forest Hill Avenue, which actually is part of that cul-de-sac you see on the northwest corner, part of that is public. So one of the access points is going to be from there. One of the access points is proposed on 27th Street. So Orchard Way is the only public road. There are internal connection points that you'll see on the PUD site plan.
Thank you.
So, I heard a lot. I'm trying to think what else I was going to address. Forgetting. I know it's traffic. I think Aaron summed it up best. You know, we are going to have some increased volumes, and as we see it, we're going to have to work together to mitigate what we can do there. And again, usually that's through, unfortunately, either signage, enforcement. Most likely, though, we will not. We're not going to add a road. We're not going to enlarge a road. Shut down a road. But I mean, we do want to work with you. We don't want to impact the residents. I think it was Teresa's comments that her backyard is this development. We're not there yet, and again, I'm getting off into the weeds and ahead of ourselves. If this so does get approved, I'm sure we would have some separation there through landscape, bermage, fencing, something to not infringe on her backyard or anybody's backyard, because there's actually four of the condos there, and those are side-by-side units, so we're talking 8 families impacted there. And then, of course, there'd be a park on that corner. So those would be those greatly impacted to the backyard of that we'd have to keep an eye on that. But that's not for tonight. Getting way out in front of my skis here a little bit. So, but anyways, getting back to the certified survey map. Anybody have questions regarding the map, which includes the street? That's really where we're at.
do have a question. I don't know if it's in regards to the map. Someone brought up safety by extending this public road. I just want to get a little better understanding of how we can keep it safe for the children in the other area, or is that the next one?
Well, again, I think safety is everybody's responsibilities, particularly in subdivisions. I think it was Aaron brought it up that, you know, there are no sidewalks for the kids in this particular neighborhood. I don't even want to get into the sidewalk discussion right now. But again, you know, if we do get an additional city park there, we would have maybe better amenities that the neighborhood could input what they'd like to see on that, although it doesn't look like huge acreage, but I don't know. Carrie?
I think the Orchard Way extension is going to be built to city spec, which would address some of those concerns. It would be built with curb and gutter and those kinds of safety measures
You're correct.
installed.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, you know, we're really blending, as Brian put it, that rural style that went on in the 80s when this was done to our new specs, and we currently don't allow subdivisions be put in quite the way this one was back in the day. So, but again, I look at it, and I think Brian said it the way it is. Even if this wound up a big box in a theater, you'd probably see that road there. It's just kind of the way it is. And if I'll give you another example, we have not going in, but we do have plotted roads to have connection points, even on places like 27th and Rawson, where development will go in and things will eventually, we want to see a road go behind it for connectivity. So it's kind of the nature of the beast as 27th Street starts to grow up here. Any other questions? Nothing? Are we prepared to move on 6F?
I would like to ask the Plan Commission to consider the request for additional time for the CSM.
Thank you, Carrie. Again,
Oops.
Okay,
Oh, he didn't see the door.
man,
we're working on that.
we got to work a little faster on that. That's becoming a huge problem with us. So please, we're going to address that tomorrow at the staff meeting. That's ridiculous already. We've addressed that many times. So, time compliance. I'm with staff on a 6 month. So that's my input. Lucky we had a fireman in the audience there to help that young boy. So, okay. Motion on F, please.
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Tony DeRosa, HSI Properties LLC, for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way be approved with the following conditions. 1, that a wetland delineation is completed by a Wisconsin DNR approved professional and included on the map prior to recording. That all easements are shown and clearly labeled on the map prior to the recording. 3, the signature page is updated to include the dedication language for the extension of Orchard Way. 4, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate, geometric corrections, and corrections required for the compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording. 5, that the certified survey map shall not be recorded should the sale of the properties not occur within 4 months. Are we going
6?
6 months, okay. 6 months of the date of Common Council approval.
Johnston seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lork, no. Gavich, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Did go by. Brings us to 6G, rezone plan unit development. We're talking about the same development with HSI. Again, it's to rezone and establish a plan unit development for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way. Doug, you want to talk on the plan unit development? Oh, sorry, Carrie.
Take that one.
Apologize for that.
That's okay. So this is a proposal for what we were just describing here. It is a multifamily development. The comprehensive plan was amended in February to allow mixed residential on this property. The concept plan that is before you, as Tony was mentioning earlier in his presentation, contains 12 two-story walk-up buildings with a total of 225 units on 2 parcels. There will be 8 detached garage buildings as in this concept plan, a 4,500 roughly square foot clubhouse, and an in-ground pool. The larger parcel, which is Lot 1, will contain 3 buildings with 15 units, 7 buildings with 20 units, the clubhouse and pool, and 6 of the detached garages, as well as 1 of the proposed detention ponds. The smaller parcel, which will be on the east side of Orchard Way, will contain 2 buildings with 20 units, 2 detached garage buildings, and the second detention pond. And surface and garage parking stalls, a total of 558, are scattered throughout. There will be a combination of detached and attached garages. The parking that is in excess will also be for visitor parking, as was previously requested by Mr. Degner, who may or may not be in the audience, I can't tell. There is a section of code, section 170311 sub E3, that limits the sum total of the floor area for all buildings to 50% of the lot area. For the Plan Commission's purview, this would be, what's being proposed is about 35% of Lot 1 being covered by apartment buildings and the clubhouse, and about 32% of Lot 2 would be covered by apartment buildings. Now, this, of course, excludes the detached garages because we don't have dimensions on those, so we can't accurately calculate, but the assumption is that the 50% is not exceeded in the proposal. There was some information that was provided via email yesterday regarding setbacks as proposed in this plan. 5 of the 6 buildings along the Orchard Way extension will not meet setbacks to some extent. There is a required 25-foot setback to a public road. Those deviations were provided to the Plan Commission. There are paper copies at your screens for you to refer to. Those are variations or modifications that are requested as part of the PUD and are for Plan Commission consideration. Maximum unit densities are provided at 11.5 units per acre for Lot 1 and 11.2 units per acre for Lot 2. Those are well within the allowances per code. But these will need to be verified once the site plans are finalized, as wetland delineations have not been finalized and incorporated into the plans. There should be a notation, however, that some of the wetlands will be filled and that there will be DNR permits and approvals that will be required, and those copies would have to be provided to the city. Section 170311 sub D also specifies the minimum lot area that is required per dwelling unit. I bring this to your attention because there will be another modification request that will be considered by the Plan Commission as part of the PUD, and that is because based on the proposal, the total gross land area is about 1/3 of an acre short of meeting code requirements. So this is an additional area. This is an additional way to ensure that densities are not exceeded rather. So that's another consideration for the Plan Commission. So again, it would be the setback requirements for those 5 buildings along Orchard Way, as well as the minimum lot area per dwelling unit. That would be exceptions. We already discussed the Milwaukee County Parks letter. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with there being a roughly 20-foot buffer between the property line and the parking area, again, that will be landscaped. That will come in with site and building plan review at a later date. as well as additional buffer requirements to the existing condo units that are on, that are within the development that's south of this. We'll discuss all of that, again, at site plan review. Extensive landscape plans will be reviewed, and some of the landscaping has been identified here, but we can discuss that at a later date. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with these plans as proposed, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves the rezoning of the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way to RM1 PUD, multifamily residential plan unit development, after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Commission's review at the next meeting, which is June 26th. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Put it out to commissioners for questions. Greg?
I'll just start with, this is in my district again. I felt that it's much more appropriate to have this multifamily development versus the current zoning of B4 business, knowing what could be built in a B4 business. The few residents I did spoke to regarding this also agreed that they would much rather have a residential development, especially one that's high-end, as is this one, versus some of the other things that I told them could be built in a B4 district right behind the neighborhood. So for the rezone, I'm definitely in support of that. As far as the design, I think it's very nice. The company did make a lot of changes that were suggested. My only, concern right now would be with all the talk of increased traffic coming into the neighborhood and going down Orchard Way, would be the driveway, right along kind of where the water tower is, emptying basically the parking lot for two buildings directly into the area of concern there. I don't know if that could be addressed at all prior to the full plan coming forward. Also concerned for headlight traffic at night coming straight down that driveway into all the homes directly in front of that. I only see that being a concern to all the residents in that area. So I don't know if that's something can be addressed, but I just thought I'd bring it up. But as far as the rezone itself, I'm definitely in support of it.
Good points. Brian?
If I can just address one of those comments with the driveway coming out right there, that comes out at the intersection. So it could be a way to get a street light at that intersection. Then that corner is lit. We don't have people driving off into the culvert. And you don't have lights that are shining right into somebody's house. It's going to an intersection. So it's more like a typical street pattern at that point.
When you say light, talking straight light?
Street lights, because Orchard Way that's a public road. There'll be street lights that are extended down Orchard Way. Okay. Since that driveway is right there, extend that lighting down through there, install a street light at that intersection, and then we can light that intersection, try and create some of those issues and make them go away.
Thank you for that clarification. Dawn, anything? Fred? Chauncey?
Looks good.
I know in our write-up, we had some information about the park and a recommendation. Is it to add a buffer?
It was a 20-foot buffer.
There was
Go
a
ahead,
letter
Karen.
from Milwaukee County Parks regarding the wetlands that are within Falk Park to the east. And as Tony mentioned during his presentation, they are requesting there to be some consideration for that. Whether that includes a landscape buffer or additional space is something that would be up for discussion. However, we don't have landscape plans, and there are plans to have landscaping along the perimeter there. So there is also quite a bit of different distance between the HSI property and the delineated wetland. We just want to make sure that with the stormwater plans that runoff is going to be considered, and we want to make sure that we protect the integrity of that wetland. But for the PUD tonight, for this consideration, that's a little bit, it's premature at this point because we don't have a landscape plan to look at, but there does appear to be adequate space to address some of those concerns.
Brian?
I do have a concern with the setbacks along the public street, particularly. One of the issues, the driveways are going to be coming off that public street. So now you're only at 14, 15 feet from the right-of-way line to your garage. If a car parks there, it's going to be hanging out over the sidewalk. So to me, there's a need to keep that 25-foot setback in there
On the public street?
along the public street.
Yeah, just these 3, correct?
Mr. Mayor, can I address
please.
that? Because that's a fair comment. A couple ways I like to respond to that. So that situation with the setbacks not meeting the code requirement is a result of obviously the street becoming a public street and having a 60-foot right of way. For context, Drexel Ridge, our development, is all private streets. And when you compare, if you will, what that street right of way would be, if you drive through and you kind of have a feel for how close do those buildings feel, what do those apron spaces look like, and we're talking there's probably, I think there's 3 apron spaces that I think you're referring to, Mr. Johnson, that you have enough room. So when you compare it to Drexel, which I think works fairly well, we have probably an extra 10 to 13 feet of setback compared to what Drexel Ridge is. And Drexel Ridge works. It's just more of a function of a setback because we have a public street now requires that much more of a setback. So the other thing, if it ever were to become a problem, we have excess parking. And if it becomes a problem and we just tell some of you to park over here, you can't park in your apron, we can do that.
The big concern is just a car that would be parked in front of that door. Now they're blocking the sidewalk.
Right.
It's a public sidewalk.
And I think we'll have adequate room. And we'll take a closer look at it. I think we will have room for that.
Okay, Brian? Okay. The zoning, again, when it comes to the parks, I would respect the letter with the 20-foot buffer and make sure we take care of that with Falk Park. To Mrs. Kasperzak's comments about the park. Secondly, with the rezone, is that one section going to be dedicated parkland along the water tower right away?
That's not actually part of the rezone request. That is actually city-owned property there, so it's already zoned I-1. It could be rezoned to P1, but I don't see the reason we would do that. It's institutional.
Okay.
I think parks are allowed in an institutional district.
I thought maybe HSI was popping for a park for us.
Well, the idea behind that is to is to utilize that city-owned property, albeit for the water tower. There's some excess, or there's some land there that could accommodate some neighborhood recreational facilities. Nothing huge. It's not going to be a neighborhood park.
It's only
might
about
be
2 acres, right?
Yeah, it might be just some small, little trail connection back into Falk Park. There might be some swing set, and those are things that we work through with the neighborhood to see what the need is for activities and for facilities in that area. But it won't be anything that approaches the scale of our typical neighborhood park.
Okay, thank you for that. I knew it was a little on the small side, but.
And to even further that comment, Mr. Mayor, we did share with city staff when we met with them a few months ago that HSI would be willing to contribute to what would happen here. What exactly that is, I'll probably leave that up to city staff to work through, but we are open to some sort of contribution.
Okay.
And also would like to clarify one other point. In the letter from the parks, or Milwaukee County Parks, just to clarify, they were not requesting a buffer or a 20-foot buffer. They were requesting to stake the property line to prevent encroachments. As part of our development, I think our plan would provide for a buffer that would be beneficial to them as well as for us as well. So, just to clarify.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on G? Seeing none. Oh, Brian does.
Gary, so the property that is Lot 2 of CSM 7769, that's not part of the CSM. We're rezoning that parcel as well in this PUD.
I don't have that CSM in front of me, Ryan. Which parcel are you referring to?
That's the lot just south of Forest Hill. That's where the brick house is.
That's included in this.
It's not part of the CSM, but it's included in the rezoning.
Carved out. Oh, it's ours.
They're proposing it to be part of Lot 1. It's identified as a former Lot 2 of CSM 7769.
Perfect.
Got it?
Okay. Clear then? Okay. Somebody'd like to make a motion?
Clerk will move that the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council approve the rezoning of the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way to RM1 PUD, multifamily residential planned unit development after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Commission's review at their next meeting, June 26th.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Clark, aye. Gavich, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, thank you. We will now go back to 6C. Thank you for your patience if you waited around for this. It is a survey map variance request. Oh, hey, hi, Mike. What'd you need?
Mayor, if I could respectfully interject at this point, the item E, the temporary use, the young gentleman that made contact with the exterior door, that is his father, and his father had asked if there was any potential that item could be moved up tonight.
Yeah, we can make that provision in light of what's going on. Sorry about C. You're being put on hold one more time. We're going to go to item E. Get this young man moving. His son had a meeting with the door, unfortunately. So item E, everybody, it's a temporary use permit for Tree Ripe Citrus Company. So, Pete?
Yep, I'll take that one. If you recall, Tree Ripe Citrus came back in December requesting a temporary use to allow them to sell produce from the back of a box truck located in the parking lot at Farm and Fleet, which is up on your screen. Up on your screen, there's a red rectangle to the right. That is where they're proposing to locate the truck. They plan on having three events within the parking lot, which is identified in your report, on June 23rd, July 21st, and August 11th. His staff has always in the past talked about having outdoor sales and display of merchandise in our parking lots of our commercial district is a concern. However, it is up to the Plan Commission to determine on a case-by-case situation whether or not a proposed temporary use permit is suitable for the area for what is being proposed. In your packets, they include the background of what they do. They bring trucks down from the south. They have peaches and pecans and stuff like that. They are in the parking lot just for 1 to 2 hours. They notify their customers that they're in town through social media and other mailings or other communications, and people show up, take their order, and they walk out the door. They do have agreements with Farm and Fleets across the state. From my recollection, I did not receive any complaints or police calls regarding this operation here. However, if the Plan Commission does not concur with staff's recommendation or suggested motion that not approve the temporary use permit, the Plan Commission can make a recommendation approving the temporary use permit for the outdoor sales of produce on the property located at 501 West Rawson Avenue as identified on the submitted site plan and be valid on the following dates: 6/23/18, 7/21/18, and 8/11/18. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions, comments from Commission? Greg?
Just one quick question for the applicant. I saw in your narrative that you're listing just examples of the price per pound of the fruit. Is this sold over scales by the pound, or is it pre-boxed like a 10-pound box?
It's all by bulk pack, so volume fill. So we don't do any weighing out. It's all weights are listed from the suppliers.
Any, Fred?
Yeah, I'm really not in favor of this. Just the idea of having trucks pull in and start selling out of a truck, to me, just doesn't set a good example of the city.
I think you're going to need name and address.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Tiernan Payne, 636 North 99th Street, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
And how did it go last year?
It went very well. I think our sales actually increased throughout the course of the winter. Customers are very happy to have a location in Oak Creek. It's a very busy location for us. And I guess just to address your concerns, I feel like we do run a very professional operation, good equipment, new equipment, tasteful signage. So I think it's a little bit different from what most people would think of as an operation like you're describing.
Anyone else? I have a question. How's your son?
He's okay. He's going to have a little
okay?
knot on his head, but he's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Great. No, I'm okay with it. You may want to consult with our farmers market if it's just a few times a year.
Yes, farmer's market, you have to be a Wisconsin grower, so that wouldn't work. But I do have some questions. Having dealt with the farmer's market so much, as far as insurance and city permits and things like that, are those applicable to him as well as the market vendors?
I don't believe so. I mean, that's the insurance is on the landowner, not necessarily the city be responsible for that.
Okay.
And we also do carry our own insurance, which is provided to Farm and Fleet.
Fred?
I'm just going to say, could they work that in with the farmer's market? That type of.
As a seasonal? Well, we're in our first run. It's, we'll rehash and refocus. Right now, farmers market's enjoying some success, but you never know.
Yeah, what we have found, because we do work with many farmers markets in the area, like was brought out, some do request for Wisconsin growers only. Others have had success with what we do, but you can't really do our kind of sales that we're requesting here because of how many customers it draws, and especially like elderly customers. Getting into, especially here at the Drexel Town Center, I think would prove to be very difficult and could almost be overwhelming in terms of the traffic flow.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, motion on E, please.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission approve the temporary use permit for the outdoor produce sales in the parking lot of 501 West Rawson Avenue.
Johnston seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Keeper, no.
Chandler, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck. Hope your son's feeling better.
Mayor, if I could ask clarification on that motion. You approved the temporary use permit, but there was no date.
Oh,
I have in the report, there's the 3 dates that they'd be valid for, or you can say that it's just that the temporary use expires on the last day that they have their event, which is.
and he walked out. In talking with him, Pete, what was beneficial to him, the 3 specific days he was looking for?
I think he was just looking for the 3 specific dates. I just want to make sure that's
Okay.
in the motion, so that way we just don't give him a temporary use permit with no end date, and I have an enforcement issue.
Just amend your motion to include.
Sorry, I should have stopped just a little sooner.
Lorick will amend his motion to include dates of 6/23/18, 7/21/18, and 8/11/18.
Johnston seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Keeper, no.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, now we're getting to 6C. Unless something else pulls us off track here. And again, that is a survey map and variation request to rezone a property at 3280 East Oakwood Road from A1, limited agriculture, to R3, single-family residential. Carrie.
Yes, this is a 3-part request, and this is for the property at 3280 East Oakwood Road, which is in red on the screen. And before I move off the screen, I just want to highlight the fact that we are talking about a very small portion of this parcel, but this is the entire parcel. They want to split one lot, and that's right along Oakwood Road. The issue is right now, there are three things that need to happen in order for the CSM to be approved. One is we need to have a rezone approved for the proposed parcel. And we also need to have a variation request. Now, the variation request is something that's not often seen. And the reason it's needed is because we are just shy of the required 80-foot wide requirement. We are so shy by less than an inch. And staff worked long and hard to find a solution to this issue. The history of this is the parcel has always been seen as unplatted lands on CSMs that are in the nearby area, or whenever carve-offs happened over the years. So what's on your screen right now is the very first CSM that I was able to find that was around this area, and that shows the intention was probably for this to be an 80-foot wide lot. Now, this CSM was done back in the 70s. In fact, I think it's 1972. And you can see that there's an 80-foot designation that's along the center line of Oakwood Road. There's also an 80-foot designation along the what would be the proposed north lot line for this lot. So there's one piece of evidence. Here's another CSM that was from 1987, another carve-off from the overall larger parcel, where you can see the southern lot line shows 42 feet. And again, that's kind of an indication that there would have been an additional 40-ish or 38 feet going to the other parcel line for the previous CSM that was just shown on the screen. So with that in mind, this is the proposed lot. And staff is comfortable with the history of this parcel, that it was probably intended for it to be 80 feet wide. And being that the last CSM that really affected this area was done in 1972, and there have been advances in technology and surveying techniques that we are now so precise as to see that this is less than an inch short. The variation comes into play here. There's a small portion of the code that allows the Plan Commission to make a recommendation to council for a variation to be granted if it meets certain criteria. Staff is supportive of the request for the variation. It would allow this lot to be carved off as was originally intended. The rezone is to allow it to be developed with a single-family residential development, which would be one house. And the RS3 designation matches the surrounding area. The rest of the parcel would remain in agricultural or conservation use at this time. So until such time as that use would change, nothing else in the property would change. It would just be the carve-off of this lot. So if the Plan Commission is on board, understands that history, then there are three requests for you tonight in the motion, and the motion is multi-part. We need to have a ruling that incorporates all three. Otherwise, this can't move forward. So the recommendation is for approval in the suggested motion. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We do have one speaker before I turn it over to Commission. Monica Perkins, please. Thank you for your patience, because we really pushed you to the bottom of the pile here tonight.
Hi, Monica Perkins, 3408 East O'Brien Road. I've lived there since 1988, and ever since I've lived there, that parcel has just been mowed grass. My question, I guess, is, okay, why was that parcel of land that this other person has cut for all these years been residential, and right next to it is agricultural, and then another house resident? Why haven't they been taxed on this as residential? Why was it just this one parcel that was, niched out all these years? Plus, on that map where it was all red, that floods every single year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Oakwood Road. We've had people and kids that are in canoes catching carp. I'm not kidding, pictures this big when it floods. There's a water drainage there. My concern is if they start building houses there, where's that water going to go? We already have major issues in our basement when it floods. The gentleman, that house sits there, he has a backup generator built on the outside of his house. His house will never flood. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. And they say no development at this time for the other parcel. What does that mean? It's a floodplain. Does that mean you fill it up and the water comes into our old subdivision? I have major concerns with it, not so far as, that little inch. My concern is the extra water that's going to be displaced. And what are the future plans? When I bought the house, I inquired, are there going to be sidewalks? What's the use for that area over there? It's floodplain. They'll never be able to use it. A few years back, we had an engineer come in for something on our property. We talked to him. He said no, because it's a floodplain. They'll have to constantly pump the water out of it. We're not going to do anything with it. And now I hear that not at this time. Well, I intend on staying there till they put me in the grave. So what does not at this time mean as far as the time frame? I don't want that floodplain filled up with fresh dirt, because I know you can't dig into it. Those are my concerns. Why was it agricultural all these years, and all of a sudden now they want to just sell that part off? Why weren't they taxed at residentials if that's what it was going to be now?
Doug, you want to clarify?
Maybe I can address some of your concerns. I mean, the terminology not at this time is because the purpose of this proposal is just for that lot. There is no, as far as I'm aware, and I've talked with the owners, there is no intention to develop the remainder of the property. In fact, I mean, they have been in talking, and I don't want to predispose them in any action, but there's been discussions with respect to how they could potentially preserve the rest of that property. So, I mean, I think that in the event that someone would propose any additional development on the remainder of the unplatted lands, we'd have those same concerns. I'm sure Brian can echo your statements in terms of the floodplains and what have you. There is no proposal at this point in time to change any of that. This is only affecting that kind of finger, if you will, at the east end of the property. With respect to the taxes and the use, I mean, taxes are based on the use of the property. And if the property was used for agricultural, they applied for the agricultural use exemption, they received that. I mean, we can't necessarily go in there and say, well, we're going to tax you at this rate, we're going to tax you at this rate. It's all governed by the uniformity clause and the state statute. So if they qualified under agricultural, as anyone would, then they were treated to that exemption.
Does that answer your question on why it was A1? Why it was taxed at agricultural? Not really. Again, that was the use they declared. So
Right. My thought was, okay, in that little slot there, that's their house. And the other side, where they want to change it now, he just cuts the lawn. There's nothing growing there but grass. Same as on the other side. It looks like a park.
Well,
it's all part of the same property, though.
Right, I understand that. I just don't want the floodplain to be filled in.
That's not changing the floodplain at all.
At all, ever?
No one can say ever, but I think that we'd have those similar concerns if anyone were to even propose changing the floodplain in that area.
Yeah, because I've looked at the DNR paperwork, or went on their website, and it's like, this would not be a pretty thing if they filled it in. Because we know where the water would all go.
Ryan, any comments concerning the water?
They're not looking at filling in the wetlands at this, or floodplain at this time. With this lot, it's one single family home that's being built there. We definitely would have concerns as well if anybody wanted to come in to fill in those wetlands. There is a lot of water that's down there, and it needs to go someplace. So we wouldn't want to see them filled in.
Culvert down there, right? That's
Yes, it's all culvert.
So, I mean, everything's going to have to be designed as you put the building in to drain properly so you don't impose on anybody's property.
And I haven't seen a grading plan for this yet. The lot itself is fairly flat. It splits, it drains to the back. There's a swale that comes off that row of homes that's off of Oakwood, and that drains to the west. My assumption is that that's how this house is going to be designed, that it's draining to that swale, and all that water is going to drain to the west.
Pam? Name and address, please.
I'm Sharon DeWitt, 3380 East Oak Lane. My mother, Laverne Burse, is the owner of this property, and I have some answers for Monica's concerns. First of all, this particular lot has been zoned agricultural. However, it is, as you can see on the map, surrounded by 3 residential properties, and the fourth side is Oakwood Road. So in order to use agricultural equipment in there, it's not conducive to get farm equipment in there. So all these years, my brother, who lives just to the west of lot number 1, has been cutting the grass there to maintain it as a groom lot for the city, because we can't use it as agricultural because we can't get in there. So that's why it's been maintained as cutting the grass. Our family is aging, and it's very difficult for us to maintain that property now, and so that's why we're requesting to have that split off, excuse me, by 1 lot. The variance, excuse me, the variance according to the survey company who did the survey is 3/8 of an inch short of the 80 feet. And my question for Monica was, you said that the person that lives in the next lot has a backup generator outside? Is that what you were saying, the property? To the west of this lot number 1? To the left? Yes. That's not a backup generator, that is just a automatic generator. So when he's not home, it'll go on if power goes out, but it's not necessarily a backup generator. So those are my answers for Monica's questions, and I'm available if anyone else has any other questions.
Any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Discussion or motion? Motion. Brian says motion.
Johnston moves that the Planning Commission recommends to the Common Council, 1, that a portion of the property at 3280 East Oakwood Road, shown as Lot 1 on the proposed certified survey map, be rezoned from A1 Limited Agricultural to RS3 Single Family Residential. And 2, that the certified survey map and variation requests submitted by Laverne Bors for the property at 3280 East Oakwood Road be approved with the following conditions. A, that a 7-foot wide storm sewer easement along the southern property line is included on the map prior to recording. B, that a note is included on the map indicating that the remaining unplatted lands will remain agricultural or conservation. Any change to the use or development of the property will require additional review and approval by the city, including but not limited to a wetland delineation. C, that the floodplain boundary is included on the map prior to recording. D, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Gavich, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, thank you. Brings us to item D, and if my calculations are right, this is the last item of the night. Sorry about that, you were the unlucky winners of that one. It is a conditional use amendment submitted by Kelly Gallagher for Self Storage Ventures LLC for an amendment to the time compliance of the existing conditional use permit for a self-storage facility on the property located at 275 East Drexel Avenue. Gary?
The request is for the time of compliance section to be extended. The request has been for an additional 12 months. Staff is recommending an additional 6 months. The history of this is the CUP was approved by the Common Council on June 6, 2017, and this was the approved site plan. The conditional use permit required commencement of operations within 12 months of approval by the Common Council. When they were conducting their site investigations, they discovered contaminated material, which required additional conversations over roughly the last 6 months with the DNR regarding capping and cleaning up, and all those requirements are still in flux. So staff is recommending an additional 6 months because they seem to be getting close to a resolution. This would allow them some extra time to get those requirements in place and apply for building permits, which would be in fulfillment of the time of compliance requirement for them to commence operations. We consider that getting a building permit. So the only section of the conditions and restrictions that were previously approved that would be changed would be section 12. And that would be amended to state that the operator of the conditional use shall commence work in accordance with these conditions and restrictions for the conditional use within 6 months from the date of adoption, and it would expire within 6 months after the day of adoption if a building permit has not been issued for the approved use. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal and with the 6-month recommendation by staff, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approve a conditional use permit extending, and it should be section 12, time of compliance, to a deadline of 6 months of the date of adoption of the amendment ordinance for the property at 275 East Drexel Avenue after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before I put it to council, is there anybody wishing to speak? We have a few people left in the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak briefly. Attorney Brian Randall of Davis and Keelthau, 111 East Kilbourne Avenue in Milwaukee, here on behalf of Kelly Gallagher, who many of you may remember. Kelly is the developer, and he is the guy behind SSV Oak Creek Roman numeral 2 LLC. That is the site entity that owns, or the site ownership entity. We requested, and I know the full materials are in your packet, we did request 12 months, which I think is the allowed amount of time, the standard amount of time, certainly was the first amount of time under our original approval. And we requested the 12 months for a good reason. This has been a long project, and it's been one that Kelly is very dedicated to. My notes say, two cliches, good things are worth waiting for, and a long, strange trip it's been. Carrie did reference when we were approved, June of last year, but we actually began meeting with the city in early 2016, and one of the things that ultimately happened was the LM1 Light Manufacturing District was a code section created that did include self-storage that was a precursor to us coming through. And so then in 2016, 2017, that drafting process and the creation of the district occurred. Finally, spring of 2017, we did apply for the rezone and the conditional use permit. Everything going as we thought on schedule. But in the spring of 2017, we had a pair of phase 2 environmental site assessments. And what Kelly did is he had consultant number 1 find what was on this site, some stockpiled construction debris, and he had consultant number 2 verify that to make sure that there was indeed some contamination. And unfortunately, that's what we found. And in July of 2017, 37 tons were trucked off the site and disposed of properly. Kelly, of course, then did the right thing of documenting that and submitting that to the Department of Natural Resources, and that submission occurred in September of 2017 in a document called a no further action request. In other words, we identified in the reports what we found on site. It was construction debris dumped there by someone else. If you all recognize or remember this site, it's behind the Wendy's, behind the bank, and there is one stockpile there today that's clean. There was another stockpile, though, that we took care of, and that's what this was really about. Unfortunately, the DNR denied the no further action request. That was October of 2017, and I was looking at all these DNR records today. There are quite a few of them on here. The DNR, in doing that, asked for additional information. And one of the things under the DNR regs, when a submission goes in, the DNR has 60 days to respond. And with, I think, the state's workload and some southeastern Wisconsin area projects that are commanding a lot of attention, what I've found generally for a couple of my projects, but Kelly's specifically, 2 in Oak Creek, we receive requests on day 57, 58 for additional information from the DNR. And that resets the 60-day clock. So Kelly, his team, as I look at this submission, within 5 or 10 days, they're constantly responding to the DNR request, keeping the clock short on our end. But the DNR then takes almost another 60 days and sometimes just asks for more information. What the DNR did in this instance then, in January of 2018, is indicate that they were going to hold this site to a standard that was higher, to the residential standard. What we were proposing, consistent with the LM1 district, was capping the site, covering it with buildings and pavement and what we've always proposed, and so certainly that's something to keep in mind. We're not proposing anything different for you today. But the DNR, as best I can tell, because we have adjacent residential, they asked us to make sure it was done to a higher standard. We have no groundwater contamination, that's been documented, but certainly the other residual contaminants, they want to make sure to a residential standard, even on our site, that we maintain that. So the DNR asked for additional information, and those documents were submitted after the DNR did that in January of 2018. A submission in January of 2018. Guess what? March, another information request came from the DNR, and so 7 days later, Kelly submitted that. Right now, we are on the clock, we hope, with the site investigation report that we've submitted, that the DNR will provide the concurrence and the response. What Kelly then has to do, though, is do the full building plans, because he's holding back on that 5-figure commitment for the engineers and the architect to finalize the building permit level plans. We've submitted a lot of information to the city. We know this is what the project's going to look like. But until we know the DNR will permit the site layout exactly as shown on the screen, Kelly's holding back on letting the engineer go, and that's about a 10-week, almost 12-week process. So while he's invested in the site, he's bought it for 6 figures, the legal fees, the environmental consultant fees, he is well invested in this site. This isn't a prospective opportunity, and he does want to proceed, and we're mindful when the building season is. The reality is there have been delays not of his doing and somewhat frustrating. So we would like the full amount of 12 months so as to avoid, Tony DeRosa kind of took my line from me, we don't want to have to come back to you and ask for another extension, and I think your application fee shot up on this one. I think we have $1,000 on this application fee. Kelly apologized for not being here. He thought he'd send the lawyer and save the plane ticket, although it was a long wait. I fortunately brought other work to do, and I'm still not done with all that other work. Nonetheless, we'd like to not have to come back in 6 months with our next 3 pages of the DNR list saying we're still working at it. So with all respect to staff, and I know they'd like to keep this moving, and they're proposing 6 months, and I think the Plan Commission has the discretion, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. We're asking for 12 months, but we are very optimistic and we're very hopeful that within 6, 9, 10 months, we are under construction and we're building what it is that you approved long ago. I can answer any questions, but again, Kelly did want to express his continued interest in the site, his thanks for all the past approvals, and if you'd grant this extension, that would enable him to keep working at what we need to do. We're trying to be polite to the DNR. We don't want to tick anyone off, but this does kind of speak for itself. This has been a lot of submissions and it's a lot of high-level engineering for good reason. Environmental matters are of good concern. So we're trying to do things right, and we think it will be a good thing that's worth waiting for on this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we throw it to commission, folks, you've waited a long time. You have something you want to say?
Art Mays, 7955 South Winbrook Court. We're one of the properties that face this property, and we're just glad to see it happen someday. There was other proposals, and we're glad to see this storage unit, and that they did respond to all our requests as far as views and landscaping and everything else. And then we saw the for sale sign up again, and we thought this whole thing went away, and we were just here to see what's going on. And then we got a little notice in the mail, and so we just wanted to make sure that this actually ends up as originally proposed, and all his work to make us satisfied does actually happen. When we saw the signs up for sale again, we thought, okay, here we go again, what's up?
I agree. I wouldn't want to start over because they did work very well with the neighborhood initially. So
Yep. And we're not easy to work with.
To tell you the truth, I lost track of it too. I thought it was long gone too. Thank you. Commission, questions? Brian? Dawn? Greg? Fred? Josie?
Just clarification. So you're looking for a year extension until June 2019?
Yes. Does this go to the Common Council? I'll defer to staff on how. So yes, it would go to the Common Council, whatever date that is the final approval, then it would be 1 year from then. So we're probably talking June or early July of 2019.
And then, Carrie, so based on the update that we have in our packet, this is just, instead of 12 months, the recommendation is just an additional 6 months.
That's
Am I-
correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we on tune with a motion? Or do we got to discuss the timeline?
I guess timeline's the only question.
Yeah.
I'm good with 6 months.
Good with 6? I'd like it done. Again, I don't know. I'd go 9, but you guys say 6.
No,
it's
I
6.
can go 9 too.
Brian, I mean, you deal in this all the time, and I know you engineers are like by the letter
Yeah, I'm good with 6 months.
here. Oh, you know what, Greg? 6. All right, 6 it is, guys. I can't get it for you, Brian. All right, motion then, please.
If I could just have everybody,
sorry.
before you make the motion, change section 11 to section 12, please.
Johnson moves that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approve a conditional use permit amendment extending Section 12 time of compliance to a deadline of 6 months, the date of adoption of the amendment ordinance for the property at 275 East Drexel Avenue after a public hearing.
Oracle second.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lower guy.
Gavich, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
And we got everything. I know I jumped around tonight. Thanks for your patience. Just before we adjourn, a couple announcements. If you haven't checked out our farmers market, it's entering its 3rd consecutive weekend. Please get out there Saturday mornings. The weather's going to be great this weekend, so please get out there. Immediately after the farmers market is our summer solstice, the official kickoff of summer at Drexeltown Square. So please come on out, enjoy. There's going to be music, refreshments, food, lots of things going on this weekend here in Oak Creek. So that's it. Anybody else? Did I miss anything? No? If not, get out there, discover, and celebrate Oak Creek. And adjournment, please.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 8:24.
Seifert seconds.
Before I call for a roll call, I always do this. Thank you to staff. I really appreciate all the efforts tonight.
One thing, it's actually 8:33.
I went by the computer time right there.
That could
Grillo
cost
moves to adjourn at 8:34.
Again, thank you, staff. The meetings aren't always easy. They do get off track, and thank you for keeping us on track, especially with some of the subject matter. So, again, thanks.
Oracle second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lower guy.
Gavich, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Excellent. Thank you. Good night.